Hi guys, welcome back to Fake Fangs episode 2. Today's episode is called No Nuns, No Nuns, None. And today I will be taking a look into episode 2 of FX's What We Do in the Shadows City Council. So let's go. So just a quick recap on the episode. We take a peek at the LARPers and we get to see Jenna again, played by Beanie Feldstein. We also see the vampires reflect upon the Baron's demands all those centuries ago when they first came to America, and they come to the realization that they need to take over Staten Island before the Baron awakes, which, with the help of Colin Robinson, means they get into a bit of trouble with the local council. In this episode, we get to see a bit more individuality with each character. Everyone seems to have a moment in the spotlight where we get to see just a little bit more of their character open up to us. Most notably Nadia. At the start of the episode, we see her take an interest in Jenna due to the way that she's treated by the other LARPers, most notably Kyle, who goes so far as to spit on her while they're role-playing. We get the vibe from the first episode that Nadia doesn't really care for the lives of humans. If we think back to when their familiar was eaten by the Baron, it didn't even faze her. Yet she shows sympathy for Jenna, even going so far as to say, "Don't worry, little one day they will all be dead and you will do a shit on all of their graves." She's hovering outside the window with no one around to hear her, especially not Jenna, so I feel like this moment shows her compassion. Although this show is truly a comedy through and through, they want to showcase the depth that these characters have. I can't wait to talk about this in future episodes, but for now, you can tell that in that moment outside the window, that's where Nadia made her decision to make Jenna a vampire. By living her life as a vampire, Nadia has grown so powerful and confident to the point where she would do a shit on the graves of her enemies. I feel as if she can see herself in Jenna and wants her to feel the same freedom and empowerment she felt when becoming a vampire herself. We then see later on in the episode, Nadia can't forget about what she saw in the window, and after their business at the council, she seeks Jenna out so that she can turn her. I think this is really exciting to see someone be turned into a vampire in only the second episode. We know that Guillermo wants to become a vampire, so I would have thought that the only time that we would have seen this happen would be later down the line when Guillermo was turned, if that is ever going to happen. But they hold nothing back from us, and I think the creation of vampires in this world is an interesting one. They seem to be going for the interview with the vampire way, in which a vampire has to drain someone of all their blood, and then the victim has to drink the blood of the vampire, although there seems to be more of a transition period from human to vampire rather than them just being turned straight away. It's made me so excited for the day that we finally see this happen to Guillermo. A lot can change in these seasons, so who knows if we will ever get to that point. This scene with Jenna has posed a lot of questions about Guillermo for me. When will he be turned? Who will turn him? How will it happen? Will he stay with the vampires when he's turned? How will the dynamic change in the household? I mean, something could happen and he could change his mind, but I, for one, really want to see his dreams come true. Nandor and Guillermo really do have a twisted relationship. This just becomes more and more apparent as the show goes on, and we see how dangerously their lives are mixed and mingled together. They truly do bicker like an old married couple. There's a scene in this episode which I really enjoy where Nandor is holding Guillermo up by the feet so he can dust the chandelier in the foyer. The whole time he's commenting on what Guillermo is doing, how exactly he should be doing it, and be careful of the spider house. If you think about it, Nandor could just as easily levitate himself up to the chandelier and dust it himself in a way that he approves of, but he doesn't do this. Instead, he decides to hold Guillermo up so he can do it. It has me wondering, why would he choose the more difficult option? I feel as if Nandor assisting him, rather than actually doing it himself, gives the idea that he's the gracious master. He's being kind and considerate by helping Guillermo with his endless chores. We know for a fact from the first episode that this is not how Nandor truly treats Guillermo. It seems to me that he doesn't really want to help, but more so just wants the praise for the illusion of helping, and willingly gaslights himself into thinking that he's a good guy. This then is completely undermined by the fact that he makes a dig at Guillermo while supposedly helping him, and then in the next scene they are just right back to their bickering again. Just a quick mention of the bus scene. I think this is hilarious, and there's so much to comment on. The way we go from the dark, dingy mansion to a direct cut of this incredibly bright, luminescent bus with these vivid neon colours is such a stark contrast. The most notable thing to comment on would once again be that of the wardrobe, designed by Laura Montgomery and Amanda Neal, who are the costume designers for the show. Like my comment on Nandor's outfit in the supermarket scene in episode 1, these dark, gothic clothes do not fit in this modern setting. All three vampires, and even Guillermo, seem to cast this gloomy shadow over their row of seats, and it really makes them stick out from the rest of the interior. I feel as if them being shown as so out of place here highlights how out of depth they are with finding a way to conquer the new world. However, Colin Robinson's beige outfit is brightened by the fluorescent lights, helping him to seamlessly blend in with his surroundings. Also, the fact that he sat in the row in front of the rest of the group shows us that he's actually the one that's leading them on this adventure. This idea then continues into the next scene when all of the vampires are in this brightly lit council room with Colin Robinson once again leading the charge for his mega feed. Speaking of Colin Robinson's mega feed, I think this is the first look that we get of how energy vampires really work. We watch him bore the council with what he's talking about, and then once he's done, he makes this strange face and his eyes turn blue to show that he's completed his feed. It's so different from how the classic vampires work. The act of drinking blood is so physical and, in some media, can be quite violent or maybe even sexy. So it feels weird to even call Colin Robinson a vampire, and his existence really makes me question the definition of what a vampire can actually be. Maybe that's a debate for another day, but just touching upon blood drinking itself, we get a bit more of an insight into the actual taste of blood in this episode. I really feel like there's such a mystery around why vampires need to drink blood to live, and the answer for this varies from movies to shows to books, many of which stating that it's only a necessity. They only drink blood when they absolutely have to, and it's only enough so that they can keep living. We once again find ourselves back at Twilight for another example. The vampires need blood, but they don't really want it. Edward really enforces this idea of only drinking animal blood, that killing people to drink human blood isn't worth it, and seeing how popular Twilight was back in its prime, and even now its fanbase is still pretty strong, I feel as if this ideal is mirrored in so many other things. By not wanting blood or finding alternatives helps these vampires to keep their humanity. Shadows, however, is an exception to this. Of course, blood is still a necessity to them, but it's painted more in the light of indulgence, maybe even going so far as to say it's an addiction. These vampires who have lived so long have truly separated themselves from their food. They view humans only as prey, as mere meat that comes in an array of flavours. Guillermo finds the virgin LARPing group for them, and they loom in the window like predators, deciding which ones they'll take, the same way that we may look into a bakery window at all of the fresh cakes and pastries. And the way that they're spoken about is so objectified. They witness Kyle being cruel to Jenna, and Nadja simply states, "They are a bowl of rotten fruit," choosing not to eat them purely based on the fact that they just probably won't taste very good, and not even taking into consideration that they are real people with lives and families. We have another moment like that when Laszlo visits the councilwoman's house to talk to her, and she's holding her granddaughter. He says, "What a lovely little nibble she would be," with absolutely no regard to the fact that she is a baby with her whole life ahead of her. They are so far removed from how humans live their lives in the modern world. However, this is completely contrasted by the fact that they still do care for some humans that they cross paths with. In this very same episode, we have Nadja, who sees potential in Jenna, who was only going to be a quick meal, and a relationship we will discuss further in later episodes, but Laszlo and Sean become the best of friends. Although they are painted to seem like these bloodthirsty monsters, which, don't get me wrong, they absolutely are, I think there is still humanity to them. A humanity that doesn't come from the usual trope of, I cannot give in to the lust of drinking human blood or I'll be a monster, but from the people they interact with and the things that they learn from them. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Fake Fangs. If you like this podcast, then please follow me on Instagram at fakefangs_ for more content. And once again, thank you to my editor Becky Gray, who you can also find on Instagram at Becky Gray Music Arts. I hope you guys have a good day, and I'll see you in the next one.